They trashed hotel rooms, humiliated total strangers, and made people do terrible things. And no one could stop them because no one knew who they were. The group called themselves Pranknet, and this is how they became one of the most hated websites on the internet. So my goal this year is to give you guys double the amount of videos without sacrificing quality, and to do that, we gotta keep growing. So 70% of you guys aren't subscribed. It would mean the world to me if you did, and I promise to give you more fire content. I'm Visual Venture, and you are awesome. The dark side of laughter. The year was 2008, and pranknet.org was like a clubhouse for the internet's worst pranksters. The website looked like a regular chat room with about 200 people, except they weren't there to just discuss pranks. They wanted to do them. There was just one obstacle. They wanted to do pranks in real life, but Pranknet's members were scattered across the country staring at computer screens. How could they prank anyone in real life if they were behind their computers? Eventually, they figured it out, and their solution was diabolical. Pranknet used something simple, something almost everyone has, a phone. With a phone call, they could pretend to be anyone, and they could target people all over the world. But that wasn't enough for them. They decided to record the prank calls, and then post them online for laughs. They even made a creepy logo. It was a huge black bird with its wings wide open. Inside the bird was an angry man yelling on the phone. That was the reaction they were aiming for. At the bottom, it said Prank University. That was another name they sometimes went by. And by early 2009, they were ready to carry out these pranks. Their first victims. February 10th, 2009. It was a quiet night at the Best Western Hotel in Pennsylvania. Guests were asleep in their rooms. Everything seemed normal, but the hotel was about to be thrown into panic. It started when the phone rang in room 306. The guest picked up. The voice on the line sounded serious. He said his name was Jonathan Davis from the front desk, and he had bad news. A gas leak had spread through the building. It was so serious that other guests were passing out. Obviously, the guest in room 306 was worried, but the guy on the phone, who was allegedly calling from the front desk, had a solution. He told the guest to do 3 things to protect himself. Step 1, unplug everything. Step 2, wet some towels and press them against the door. That would prevent carbon monoxide from leaking into the room. The guest followed every step. He didn't ask many questions. He just wanted to survive. Then the caller gave the 3rd instruction, and it was extreme. He told the guest to break the glass window in the room. The window was huge, 5 feet wide, 5 feet tall. If you broke it, it would cause serious damage. The guest asked, "Are you serious?" The guy on the phone repeated the instruction. Smash that window to let more air into the room. Thinking his life was at risk, the guest grabbed a chair and shattered the glass. Cold air rushed in, but there was one last thing that needed to be done. The caller said the TV in the room could potentially explode because of the gas leak. It had to be destroyed immediately. The guest hit the TV, but it didn't break. So the caller told him to throw it out the window. The guest obeyed. The TV flew out of the window and crashed onto the sidewalk below. Luckily, it didn't fall on anyone walking below. The guest was shaking. He thought he just saved his own life, but it was all a lie. The man on the phone wasn't from the front desk. He was from Pranknet, and he just tricked the guest into causing thousands of dollars in damage. And it wasn't just room 306. Other rooms got the same call about a gas leak emergency. By the end of the night, multiple guests smashed windows and destroyed hotel property. Hotel workers couldn't believe what they were seeing. They called the police for help, but by then the damage was done. And the whole time, Pranknet was in their chat room listening and laughing. They recorded the calls and posted the audio online, but this was only the start of what they had planned, because the next prank was so shocking most people can't even talk about it. The apple cider incident. On July 20th, 2009, Pranknet targeted Homegood Suites in Kentucky. That night, one of Pranknet's members called a hotel guest. He pretended to be the manager, and what he said was terrifying. He claimed that the room's previous guest tested positive for hepatitis C. Because of that, the current guest could have gotten infected from staying in the same room, especially if the room wasn't properly cleaned by hotel staff. The whole call was building up to one request. The caller said a doctor was in the hotel, and the guest needed to bring a urine sample down to the front desk to be tested, just to make sure they were okay. All they had to do was pee into a glass and bring it down to the front desk. To avoid alarming other guests, the caller told them to use a code word, apple cider. That was the code. While the guest got ready, the prankster made another call. This time, they called the front desk clerk. This was the person the guest was supposed to bring the apple cider to. The prankster pretended to be a representative from an apple cider company. He told the clerk that a guest would be dropping off off a sample for a taste test, and he wanted the clerk to take a sip and provide feedback. Moments later, the guest showed up. They handed the hotel clerk a glass of warm liquid. She smiled and said thank you and took a sip. Her face changed instantly. She said, "That does not taste like cider. I'm not gonna take another sip. That's horrible." That's when the Pranknet caller told her what she really drank. After that, let's just say all hell broke loose. As usual, Pranknet shared the recording online. To them, pain was entertainment. As Pranknet's reputation spread, people began to realize the truth. Anyone could be the next victim. All you had to do was pick up the phone. Not long after, Pranknet hit more hotels. In Alabama, they tricked the guest into setting off a sprinkler inside his room. In Nebraska, they convinced someone to drive his truck into the hotel lobby. The total cost of repairs from these incidents exceeded $100,000. News outlets picked up the story. Hotels across the country were on alert. By June 2009, there were 8 cases across 4 states and counting. The police got involved. To them, these weren't pranks. They were serious crimes. And now the police were hunting the people behind Pranknet. The pranks were going too far. Law enforcement was working hard to catch the people behind Pranknet. In the meantime, Pranknet found new ways to cause chaos, and they weren't just targeting hotels anymore. One night, they called a busy restaurant. They told the manager that a recent pork shipment tested positive for swine flu. The manager panicked and evacuated the restaurant. Pranknet chose that restaurant because it had a live webcam in the dining room, so they could watch the panic unfold in real time. Then there was the KFC incident. Pranknet convinced workers at a KFC in Manchester to do something humiliating. By the time they realized it was a prank, it was too late. The KFC kitchen was a wreck, and the story made national news. Pranknet also found a way to hijack business phone lines. They would call a phone company, pretend to be the business owner, and claim the phones weren't working. Then they would ask the phone company to forward the business's calls to a different number, and somehow it worked. One time, they hijacked the phone lines of a Hilton hotel in Tulsa. When people called the hotel, they were told there was a flu outbreak. Others were warned that armed men were inside holding hostages. As Pranknet's twisted calls made headlines, people started to worry. If a stranger could cause this much chaos with just a call, were hotels and restaurants even safe anymore? The public was divided. Some blamed the pranksters. Others blamed the victims, saying people who give in to orders like this are just waiting for an excuse to do bad stuff that they wanted to do anyway. Meanwhile, police were doing everything they could to find the pranksters, but they still had no solid leads. There were rumors online, but nothing concrete. It was a problem no one could ignore, so someone else stepped in to stop Pranknet once and for all. Catching the criminals. The Smoking Gun was a popular investigative website, and in mid-2019, the reporters at the site set a new goal: to expose the true identities of the people behind Pranknet. But it wasn't going to be easy. For 7 weeks, the team followed clues across the internet. They studied chat room conversations and examined police reports. And they noticed something important. Pranknet used Skype to make their calls. That's why the police couldn't trace them like normal prank calls. Slowly, the pieces came together. They discovered the group had a leader. He called himself Dex. He named himself after the TV show Dexter, who was a serial killer. From his comments, Dex saw himself as a puppet master, a mastermind. But the mastermind was about to make a big mistake. The Smoking Gun reporters joined the Pranknet chat room and offered to interview Dex. Dex couldn't resist. He agreed to an interview on Skype. He showed no guilt for his actions. On the contrary, he blamed the victims for what happened. He called them sheep with no brains of their own. He also said Pranknet's real mission was to prove how stupid people were. When the reporters asked if he was scared of getting caught, his response was arrogant. His exact words were, "It's too difficult to find me. I'm a ghost on the internet." But while Dex ranted, the reporters already had a trap ready. They sent him a special link to view one of their articles. When Dex clicked it, it silently revealed his IP address and location. The address wasn't even in the US, it was in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. So 2 reporters got on a plane. They flew to Windsor, and when they arrived, they found the exact place where Dex lived. They staked out the building for days, watching everyone who came and went, and that's when they figured it out. Dex wasn't some criminal mastermind. His real name was Tariq Malik. He was 25 years old, he lived with his mom, he had no job and no friends. The Smoking Gun solved the mystery. In August 2009, they published a story. In it, they revealed Dex's name, picture, and address. By hacking Dex, they uncovered the identities of some other Pranknet members. They revealed those names too. The expose went viral. News stations picked it up. Finally, reporters knocked on Malik's door, but Malik never came outside. He was hiding. Maybe if he thought he ignored them, they would just leave, but they didn't. The reporters stayed and interviewed the neighbors. Then something ironic happened. Dex, the guy who humiliated strangers for fun, called the cops on the reporters. He claimed there were suspicious persons outside his home, and he wanted them removed. When the reporters found out, they put that on the news too. Soon after, the FBI got involved. Several members of Pranknet were arrested. Some were found guilty of criminal mischief and sentenced to prison. Interestingly, Tariq Malik, also known as Dex, denied being part of Pranknet. US officials tried to extradite him from Canada. However, there was no proof that he was ever arrested or charged in the US. That should have been the end of Pranknet, but it wasn't, because even after their leader was exposed, some of Pranknet's most loyal members kept going, and the stuff they did next was even more bizarre. Crisis at Motel 6. It was November 2010 at a Motel 6 in South Carolina. Joseph Jones was in room 107. The caller claimed he worked for the motel. He told Jones that the previous guest hid cameras all over the room, and now those cameras were spying on him. The voice on the phone sounded urgent. Jones had to destroy the cameras immediately. The caller claimed the cameras were hidden behind the mirrors. So Jones grabbed a wrench and smashed every mirror in the room. But there was another emergency that Jones needed to take care of. Jones believed every word. He grabbed a wrench and started smashing through the wall, trying to rescue the little person on the other side. Guests in nearby rooms heard the noise, but when the banging got louder, they called the front desk. The manager found Jones standing in a wrecked room holding a wrench. She called 911. When the police showed up, Jones explained everything. The story sounded all too familiar. This had Pranknet written all over it. Later, investigations confirmed it. On that day, Pranknet members launched a series of attacks on Motel 6 locations across the country. Luckily, the motel manager didn't make Jones pay for the damage, but she still kicked him out immediately. Over the years, the pranks got fewer and fewer. Today, Pranknet is no longer active. Some members serve time in prison. Others moved on with their lives, but their disturbing prank calls are still online for anyone to hear. These pranksters were sitting behind their computer screens in the comfort of their own homes, creating real chaos. The truth is that what you do online can really change someone's life forever. So next time you're online, ask yourself, would you be proud to stand behind your username in real life? Visualventure. Wait, before you go, there's another website that made people do even worse things than in this video, to the point that they even went to prison. Make sure you guys watch that video right here. Love you guys. Peace.